On this episode of the podcast, we're talking about marketing strategy and how my guest differentiates himself and gets people to lean in when he's talking about his business and what he does. We also talk about his post-production workflow. This guy has been in the industry for at least a couple of decades and has really honed a process. And he makes a bold prediction that he can help you 5x your post-production timing workflow, that he can help you increase your efficiencies. So really excited to get your feedback and your inputs on this episode and his approach. What's up, friend? Hey, I am Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business Podcast, episode 290. I should have looked that up before I said it. We're getting closer to episode 300. If you're a corporate or commercial filmmaker that wants to build your business without burning out, this is the show for you. If you're tired of striving in your business and not thriving, the topics that I cover on this show are sales and marketing. We talk about process and mindset, things that will help you work smarter and not harder, as I interview some incredible guests over the course of the last almost 300 episodes, and also share my own successes and failures through the past 17 years of me running my own video production business, having built I am wearing a belt, but having built a 7-figure production studio. I don't want you to make the same mistake. I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I did years ago. Okay. Welcome to the show. If you are wanting to add some processes in your own business to help you create consistent leads and predictable income, I have a gift for you. I've put together a free training on how to consistently earn over $100,000 per year in video production while working less than 40 hours per week. I think it'd be pretty easy for me to say, like, oh yeah, you can make 6 figures. Here's how you have to. Here's how to do it. But you also have to work 100 hours a week, and that's just not sustainable. That's not healthy. That's not what I want for you. That's not what I did, and I don't believe that that's what you have to do either. In this 80-minute workshop, I'm covering the strategies and the tactics that I have used to build my 7-figure business, how I've built a team, and the secret marketing tactics that I use without being sleazy, without being salesy, without selling out, and just feeling like too corporate. My hope for you is that you'll watch this free training, get some very actionable things that you can start doing in your own business. You can get access to this on-demand training by going to this website, studiosherpas.com/workshop. Just go there, get access to the workshop, studiosherpas.com/workshop. And now, let's get into this episode. Okay, you ready? Here we go. What's up, friends? Hey, welcome to this episode. Today, I'm very excited for my guest, Mr. Scott Markowitz, who is the owner of Ryan and Scott Media. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ryan, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I can't wait to dig into it.
Absolutely. So I'm excited you're here, and I'm glad that we don't start rolling until like right now, because it seems like we're approaching episode 300 of the show, so it's not my first rodeo, but I just got back from vacation. I was on a work trip and then a previous vacation. And here I am back at the home studio, fired this bad boy up and ready to rock and roll this interview with you. And it took me 15 minutes to get squared away. So thank you for your patience. And we're ready to just jump right in.
Hey, no worries. Tech happens, as they say, right?
And it happened today. So, Scott, give us a picture of your business. What is your business like today, and how did you get started in this world?
Yeah, so my business today is it's a love affair with small businesses, right? So, I come from I come from a world where it's all about big business, and I'll talk about that in a second. But right now, Ryan and Scott Media, we service small companies. We specialize in working with custom home builders, architects, realtors, law firms, small retail, or like other types of things that require marketing, but they don't necessarily always have like those huge budgets, right? So where I'm coming from is the world of television and film production and post-production. So like I started out my career at CNN in Atlanta as a news editor, and I went out.
Heard of it.
I went out. Yeah, they're well known in some spheres, right? Some spheres they're ignored, but that we can't talk about that right now. And yeah, I went out to California. This was when Ted Turner sold the company to Time Warner, and I stopped feeling like a congruence with the company, and I just decided to leave. Nothing against like the company itself; it was just the management I didn't really agree with. Yep, and so my family was still very young. I was still freshly married, and we had a little girl. And I said to my wife, if I don't like go out to the West Coast and kind of like, earn my chops like in like doing some really hardcore serious editing, then I'm never going to do it. So she was very gracious and very loving, and she let me do that. And we moved out to the West Coast, and I was like thrown into the fire and learned the hard way, like how to do, like post-production, like the Hollywood style, right? And I taught myself After Effects. I taught myself compositing. Shortly after that, I got hired by a little boutique post-production service that did like visual effects for commercials, and they hired me as a smoke editor. And I learned how to work on those like big systems, smoke, fire, inferno, flame, that kind of stuff. And I became a pretty decent operator at that. And shortly after that, I got gobbled up by a company up in Philadelphia. They're now known as Alchemy X. They're like one of the largest integrated media companies on the East Coast. And there I earned my living as a session editor. I was one of their top dogs. And for them, like what they really wanted me to do mostly was work with their political clients. So they do a lot of work with political consulting firms. So I am very sorry, Ryan, but I am responsible personally for thousands of political ads in my career. And I am now repenting. I'm trying to make up for it by starting my own company and punishing myself that way. But but I was also, when I was at Alchemy X, I was also very lucky and very fortunate to fall into this one particular project that turned into a whole new division of the company. And it was a project helping create a pilot for Food Network. And that turned into Dinner Impossible for the Food Network, which went on to become like one of their flagship shows for the network. And it kind of like shifted the entire network away from in the kitchen cooking recipe shows to like, reality-based competition, high stakes shows. So like, that's another reason why some people hate me. Because I kind of miss Enroll, but
yeah,
that was not my intention. So it's not really my fault. But that turned into like a whole division of TV development for Alchemy X, and I became like one of their guys that helped put together show pilots and help put the workflow together for a new show. Like once it got the green light, how do you make that a profitable enterprise? And so like one of the big things that I was part of was coming up with the workflow for these new shows, and like how do you minimize the amount of time in the edit room so that you can kind of maximize the profits? Because like the show would give you or the network would give you a budget, and if you exceeded the budget, then you were in the red. But if you obviously if you were able to do things quicker, then you had more profit. So like that was one of the big things that I was instructed very often to improve upon. And that became like one of my passions. I love the history of editing and like how the progress of editing has rolled on through our history, and what we can do looking forward to keep improving and making things faster and more efficient so that you spend less time in the edit room.
Yes, something that we all would like to do. I want to dive more into that, but before we do that, tell me a little bit more about the makeup of your business. You said you're specializing with home builders, law firms, small retail, doing marketing. So this is not really meant to be a challenge, but if you listen to the show at all, we talk about niching, right? And the importance of niching. And,
yes.
And so it's just a funny, like combining the word, specialize with, there's a number, you rattled off like quite a few different industries. And I don't think that that's right or wrong or good or bad, because I definitely think that can be done, and it can be done super well. So from your take, like how do you market to those different industries effectively?
That's a great question. Let me before I answer that, Ryan, let me give you a little context. Is that okay?
Okay.
Because I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. I think that niching is very important, and it's very critical. And I tried it so hard. I wanted to do it so bad because it makes sense, and it's true that if you focus on one thing, you have an increased chance of succeeding at it, right? But for some of us creative people, Ryan, our minds just fight that. Our minds just don't want to be put into that box. And so, like, when I say that I service a lot of different folks, that doesn't necessarily mean that I market to all of them. Like I do, right? I do like become much more selective when it comes to my marketing efforts. And so, and what I've learned is that, like, if I show up for that target, and what I do target is real estate and custom home builders. Like those are the only two things that I actively market towards. But I find out, I've learned that if I am very focused on that, and like I talk to that group, other people tend to listen in every once in a while. And then they start to like hear, oh, like he's going to bend over backwards to service that client. Maybe he'll do the same for me, or they'll overhear me talking about like how the story, of what your particular industry is all about is critically important, and don't leave that up to like your potential clients to guess what that story is. Like you have to be in charge of telling them. And that's what I coach my clients to do, is like to try to get ahead of that messaging and like tell their clients and educate them. Right. So other industries will hear that. And so like a good example that I can share with you is this company here I'm in Naples, Florida. So there's this company here called Illuminated Design, and they work a lot hand in hand with custom home builders. So like, they've been on site a couple times where I've been active with my clients, and they're like watching me, and they're like, this cat is like intense. This cat is like really putting a huge effort forth to get these guys some clear messaging through video, right? So like, what happened was, like, after several of these engagements where I was not working for them or even talking to them, like I was in a situation where I was like at a networking group where I was in front of a lot of other custom home builders, and I'm pitching to them. But, like this person involved with the lighting company came up to me and was like, I really like watching you do your thing. Like I think that there might be an opportunity for you and I to maybe do something. And it's like, well, yeah, because I know that my skills are transferable to any industry, right? But to your point, that doesn't mean you should spread out your time and try to talk to all of them all at once. And so like, if you look at my Instagram feed, I'm really just talking to realtors and custom home builders.
I love that. Thank you for the context. And really, I just feel like it's a good challenge for all of us. I'm not like, trying to put you on the spot, but I think even the way that you answered that question, like, tell me about your business, and you said, well, I specialize in, these different industries. The context is perfect because that's like super helpful. But I will say that a lot of us get caught up in going to let's just say like a Chamber of Commerce event, and somebody say like, tell me about your business. I've said it before where I'm like, oh yeah, I specialize in and rattle off like 5 or 6 things in hopes that they are one of those things. But as you talked further, it makes a lot of sense when like you're not actively marketing to all these different industries, because that's really hard to do. If your Instagram was filled with all of these different industries, I'd be like, dude, like this is not serving you well. Like really dial in. But you said that even the people watching you said, man, like, they can see, or somebody said like you create clear messaging through video. I think your friend at that lighting company or whatever. And also knowing that your skills are transferable into any industry, like depending on the kind of videos that you're doing. So leading with, well, my specialty is fill in the blank of like how you're helping people, how you serve people, in that idea of like you create clear messaging, or clear marketing messaging, or clear marketing messaging for videos for my clients, or something like that. And then then it doesn't even matter what industry. Then it's just like, oh, well, that's what I need clear marketing messaging, right? I need video and I need clear marketing messaging, or I need emotional storytelling, for my brand, or whatever that thing is, like however you serve people, however that you're gifted, like that you really like doing. When you talk about that being the specialty versus like, all these different industries, because as I heard you explain it, all those different industries, you serve them in the same way, right? So that's the commonality. And so my encouragement to anybody listening is like, when you share with people what you do, make sure to include that thing that you actually, how do you help businesses, no matter, and maybe you do have a niche, right? And I know everybody struggles with like, it's just too hard, right? It's just too hard to, but if you did serve a specific niche, or you serve a whole bunch of industries, but what is the common thread with all of those industries and how you serve them and how you help them? What's the problem that they all might have that you help with video? And if you talk about that and really focus on that, then it's going to get any of those industries to lean in and be like, oh, I actually have that problem, or that sounds interesting to me. Tell me more about that. So it's, and I'm not even saying like my intention here is not to say like, oh, Scott, like you're doing this way wrong. I think you're spot on. I'm just trying to use this as a teaching moment for everybody else who falls into that trap of like saying, here's all the things I do. I don't want to miss any business. You're not pitching me business. So that's not what you were trying to do.
Yeah. And let me,
or are you trying to pitch me business?
Well, I mean, Ryan, you can't edit your own stuff, right? So, but let me piggyback real quick on that, Ryan. The thing that like I will tell people at a networking event, like if I don't typically go to the Chamber of Commerce, but I do go to other networking events. And the thing that I do like to tell people is that what I specialize in is head to heart video production. And then like people are like, well, what's that? And that kind of like allows me to say, well, like you realize that every sale is really an emotional decision. It's not necessarily like a decision people make by logically, right? Like most people can relate to that who are in business, that they know that when they make a sale, it's through like emotional triggers usually. And so like that usually will perk up their ears. And because I don't like to do scripted stuff, I like to do like documentary style stuff, and then just, fill in, with beautiful imagery, where I can, and tell the story like through people's own words. Right. So that's the style I like. And so like, that's when I approach somebody at an event, it's like, that's the message I want them to go away with, is that like I get stuff away from people's heads down to their heart, where they're going to be able to, they're more malleable that way, Ryan. They're more, like they're more gushy and they're ready to get sold.
Yeah. Dude, I hope for our listeners, I hope that you caught that. That's like that's some sage wisdom right there. And Scott, I kind of knew that I could poke you a little bit, because that's the nugget that when you go to an event, when you're meeting people, to hear Scott explain how he explains what he does. I know for certain you don't go around, to these events saying like, oh, I serve 5 different industries, because you know that doesn't work. And as you even explained, this like head to heart, dude, that's so good, and that's super powerful, and that gets people to lean in and say like, tell me more about that. And then the way that you unpack that's beautiful. And that for some people, they're going to get it. Those are the people that really do understand marketing, and those are going to be your ideal clients. And for the ones that are like, yeah, that sounds like too touchy feely or whatever. And for you, you're like, well, I don't like doing scripted stuff. So like what you're probably more interested in is something more scripted, maybe an animated explainer video or whatever. Not to say that you can't do those or that you don't do those, but when you're gonna lead with something, lead with the thing that you get most excited about and you get most passionate about, and the thing that you could talk about for a long time, and that's the thing that is going to get people to say like, oh, tell me more about that. You seem pretty excited about that. Like, that's interesting. Or for them to say like, oh, okay, not for me, and that's fine too.
Totally. Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
Well, let's jump into, I would love to hear more about your post-production workflow. I think so many of us, if editing could just be like, way faster, we'd all be a lot happier. We'd make more money. We'd be able to get onto the next project faster. We wouldn't even necessarily have to be thinking about hiring help, because, editing is the thing that bogs us all down. So if there's an approach, if there are things that you can do to help us speed up our flow, take it away, man. Give us all the wisdom.
Hey, Ryan, how about if it was 5 times faster? How would that sound?
5 times faster? I mean, that's like insane.
That's been my experience. So, like I said, I've worked on a lot of network TV shows and, a lot of broadcast commercials, things like that. And the workflow was always like you start in Media Composer, and then you kick out an EDL or an XML, and somebody tackles the audio mix, somebody else tackles the color grading. You conform it maybe like in Smoke or Fire, or maybe back in Media Composer or some other application, maybe in Resolve.
Just a quick interruption here.
Yeah.
Smoke, Fire, all that stuff. When you said that the first time, I'm like, I have no idea what the heck he's talking about. So maybe just give us a little, and maybe I'm the only ignorant one here that doesn't get that, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
help the slow guy.
When you're looking at like the real like heavy hitters, they're using platforms like Smoke, which used to be like delineated by a couple different like tiers of product. Like there was Inferno, Flame, Fire, Smoke. There's more probably like
Mist.
Yeah,
no,
there's. I mean, no, like Frost was a broadcast product from the same line and stuff. But like these are things that date back to like Jurassic Park. And like some of the earliest motion pictures that utilized visual effects that were computer generated and stuff like that. It was originated by a company called Discrete Logic back in like 1994, and they quickly took over the industry because like it was the first real uncompressed computer video editing that was also directly tied into like really heavy duty compositing tools. So, like, even to this day, like most of your broadcast dramas are finished on a Smoke or a Fire system. Almost every shot is retouched in some way, like with visual effects, like whether they're doing set extensions or, like just painting out like a grip or something that ended up in the shot, things like that.
Got it.
Right. And so like these systems are the heavy hitting tools that are used. And so that's like where I come from. That's the world that I come from and have elected to leave. And why did I elect to leave it? Because like they they like complexity. They really thrive on keeping things complex. There's like this insecurity in that world, which has kind of trickled down through the rest of the industry, down to even like wedding filmmakers that are using Premiere Pro, for example, or maybe even, maybe they're using another track-based editing system, like maybe they're using Resolve or something like that. And like these are all tools that trace back to 1991. Like when Premiere Pro was first introduced, well, it was just called Premiere when it was first introduced in 1991. But these tools are all essentially using tracks, because the only frame of reference that the software engineers had back then was tape-to-tape online editing. And so like they tried to emulate, these software engineers tried to emulate the experience of doing things tape-to-tape via a switcher. So like they went through a switcher, and like how do you do a wipe? Well, you have to have two tape decks playing the A roll and the B roll, and then you would wipe between them, with your switcher as it gets recorded, as that output gets recorded onto your third tape deck, which is recording everything that just happened through the switcher. So like, this is a side note. Like I can't stand the fact that we call things B-roll in today's like modern world. In today's modern world, there's no such thing as B-roll, because it's all stuff that's, being managed by your computer in real time, and there's no switcher involved. So please stop saying that.
Awesome.
Right. So like there's this complexity, and there's this need to grasp onto the fact that I'm special. And so like track-based editing has become like this almost last stand for the industry to say like, I don't want to make things any simpler. I want things to stay complex. I want to remain like being special. I want to, do things so that the average Joe can't emulate what I'm doing. And that's kind of nonsense, because like it's not the technical aspect of what you're doing that makes you special. It's the creative and artistic aspect of what you do, and the ability to juxtapose the right, soundbite with the right picture at the right time. That's the skill that's not going to get lost when you have simpler tools. And so what I say is, let's find the best tool set to make things as streamlined as possible. And in my experience, that's been Final Cut Pro. There's like a lot of people that like will snicker at me and laugh at me when I say that, but in practical use, in all the testing that I used to do, like in my broadcast television deliveries and stuff, the minimum time saved was 5x using Final Cut Pro, as opposed to using Avid Media Composer. You could probably like say 6 to 7x if you're using Premiere, because you have to deal with like audio pops and things not exporting correctly in Premiere Pro. And I don't say these things to offend. I'm just telling you the results that I have found in my career. So like in my business,
I think we lost half of the listeners that have been tracking until you said Final Cut. Just teasing.
No, I mean, but you're right. Like I know that like I've just made a lot of people angry. And
yeah. But listen, hear them out, everybody. Just hear them out. Don't crucify this guy yet.
So I mean, like the tools. Look, the same guy. I mean, like a lot of people don't realize this, but there's this like really smart cat named Randy Ubilos. He wrote Premiere. He wrote Premiere Pro. He wrote Final Cut Pro, the legacy version of Final Cut Pro. And guess what? He wrote Final Cut 10. And when I say him, like pretty much just him. Like he had a team of other engineers that worked underneath him, like sometimes a team of up to 6 to 7 other people working underneath him. But for the most part, he was the cat that engineered all of these tools. And his only goal, like if I've heard him interviewed a couple times, like his only goal was to democratize video editing and to make it accessible to everyone. And like through all those iterations, like through his original Premiere, release, which was with a company called, I think it was called Ultimate Mac, actually. And then like Adobe bought them, and then they released Premiere Pro shortly after that, like a couple of years after that, which introduced like a lot of compositing tools and stuff. And then, like his only goal was to take what he saw like being done in like these very fancy online editing suites and make it easier and accessible. And he ran into the same kind of friction like with post-production houses and stuff when he first started that we're seeing now. Although like now it's amplified because you got like the internet and you got like, you got like trolls that are actively like trying to make your life harder by telling you that what they heard from the last guy is true, that you have to stick with track-based editing. So I mean, like there's things built into Final Cut Pro that streamline the whole process, that work behind the scenes to do stuff that you would have to manually do otherwise, like 3-2 pull down and all this other stuff. Like instead of interpreting footage, it does it for you. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more pleasurable than doing a time remap in Final Cut Pro and like having it like the very first time like look the way you want it and look super smooth.
You mean from like an editor standpoint, there's nothing more pleasurable? Because I could think of, just a handful of things that might be a little more exciting than that.
No, I mean that literally, Ryan. That's how you know. Man. That's how you know I've been in this game too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like when I have to collaborate, like when I collaborate with other creatives, like if I have to send out a job to a colorist or to a audio engineer to do a mix, they're gonna love you so much more because like Final Cut Pro has this thing called rolls, which is the corollary to tracks in Premiere or Avid or any track-based thing. But rolls are a way to keep track of what's what in the edit instead of like the tracks. So like Final Cut Pro, like once you have it set up, like it knows what is coverage versus what's the principal, subject matter. It knows what is sound effects versus what is bed music. It knows what's nat sound versus what is narration. So like when you send that stuff over to somebody in Pro Tools and they open it up, they think that you spent days and days organizing your timeline when all you did was press one button, right?
Yeah.
And to all those Avid editors out there, like when was the last time you exported an XML and like it actually worked, like the first time, like when your audio engineer was like not calling you back saying, could you kick that out again? And it's
so Scott, this is it's kind of mind blowing. I've heard it before. I remember when Final Cut X, is it Final Cut Pro X or Final Cut X? How do you say it?
It was Final Cut Pro 10. Yep. They dropped the 10 and now it's just Final Cut Pro.
Okay, Final Cut Pro. So when it first came out, I was actually still editing, and so when they came out with 10, and it was just like, what the heck? I honestly, I felt like, what did they do to us? What is Apple trying to do to us? Because it was a whole new thing. It was super inefficient. It was like there was this massive learning curve, and then here was Premiere over here saying like, "Hey, we can copy your shortcuts over. We can, pretty much like what you were doing over there, you can do over here now. So like, come on over." So that was easy. That was smart for us from a business side, or at least we thought it was. So if I'm listening today, and I'm an editor, our studio right now, we're fed up with Premiere. We've just like with all the upgrades, and like my guys just keep coming back to me. They're like, dude, like we keep losing projects, like things keep like just not working. It's super frustrating. So we've started dabbling in Resolve. And when I say we, my guys, I'm not touching any of that stuff. We're sort of at a point now where I'm kind of like leaning in a little bit. I know if I share this with those guys, Grant was with me back in the Final Cut days. I'm not sure Zach was even born yet. but I think there's a hesitancy for me because I think there was just like lost trust a decade ago or whenever Final Cut Pro X or whatever came out. But also like just thinking, what is the learning curve for somebody who's been editing a certain way, with tracks forever, to transitioning to something like Final Cut? That's the first part of the question. But then the second part is my own baggage of like, felt like the rug was just like torn out from underneath us. And we were like, we can't use this stuff anymore. We've got to switch. Like, is there, and you'd probably say like, oh, there's no sense of that at all. Like this is just the way it is. So help me think through like how we would even consider it, or would you just recommend for people that are just getting started to consider Final Cut versus, the other platforms and the other approaches?
Okay, that's a great question. So there's no easy answer to this. So like, let me just say like the easy part of this question I'll address first. If you're just starting, Final Cut Pro 10 should be the only thing that you pick up first. Like I would suggest you learn that first before you try to learn anything else. And I would never advise anybody to only learn one software either, right? Because like, especially if you're like a freelancer or whatever, like you should be adept at a myriad of different tool sets. Because why limit yourself, in terms of how you can earn stuff. And incidentally, like you're going to be far more profitable if you're taking Premiere jobs or Avid jobs than if you're taking Final Cut jobs, because the higher end studios are using Premiere, they're using Avid, and typically they're paying you by the hour. So like if it takes you 5 times longer, you're making 5 times more.
That's good.
Right. So like I would always recommend you learn all the tools, but if you're starting out, please learn Final Cut 10 first, because then you're going to really see that difference in efficiency, and you're going to appreciate it so much. But if you're on the other side of that equation, Ryan, I hate to tell you, it's a learning curve and a half. It's the half is you got to throw away everything you know about editing interfaces, because if you don't, then you're gonna become frustrated. If you don't like, here's an example. Like when I was at Alchemy X, there was another senior editor that like he came to me like one day. He was very frustrated, and he's just like, Scott, like this Final Cut thing is just so stupid. Like I'm trying to make a string out, and I can't. Like I want to put like this clip at the end of my sequence, and I can't do it. Well, first of all, there is a way to do it. Like you just go into a different mode. Like instead of the default mode, you go into position mode, and you can move things wherever you want. It behaves more like a traditional NLE, but that's beside the point. My initial reaction to him was, dude, stop with the string outs. Like now you have a tool set that makes string outs absolutely silly. It's like it's like you want to skip the whole setup of making string outs, because like now Final Cut Pro is actually like a very powerful database more than anything else. And so you can very easily segment your source material in ways that you can just like press a button to have it filter in a way that like it just shows you all of the raw footage in a way that's like a super jacked up string out. Like you can define things by what's called keywords, or by like attributes of the files, or whatever, or like even the file structure that it was imported. Like if somebody took the time to organize the footage ahead of time, you can maintain all that information inside Final Cut. You can even move files like on the desktop, like you can rearrange them and it'll keep track of it, like back in the because it's tied directly into the operating system. So like it has hooks. If the operating system had to do something to move a file, Final Cut's aware of that.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you. I have to be done. I have a hard stop in 4 minutes.
Sorry, man.
So if you can bring this part home, and then I want to be able to ask what's the next big thing for you, and then wrap up.
Okay. Yeah. So, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are like entrenched in track-based editing, I say like give yourself a chance to stop like having to trust that something's going to work and just lean into trying to play with something and experimenting with something. Because the trust can come afterwards. Like after you learn how this new tool set is meant to be used, then you'll start to trust it. So, that's the advice I would give.
I think that's great. It's super smart, and also it's the same advice that you're giving to like a newbie. They should learn a bunch of different stuff, and then for us oldies, we should still be learning new stuff. And so I think that's a good challenge for anybody that's like pushing back and like, no way. I still am like, I remember trying to edit in Final Cut X, and I was like, this is too hard. It's like blowing my mind. I don't get it. But I really love that perspective. So thank you for that. We got to wrap up here in a second, but I just want to know, like, what's the next big thing for you, man?
Ryan, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I'm super excited about this thing that I call Reinvention Studio Lab, right? Because I didn't really dive super deep into it, but like I was, before I started Ryan and Scott Media, I was kind of hiding out at this advertising agency in Raleigh, and it was a job that like was pretty easy for me. Like before that I had opened up my own video production and I failed miserably at it. So I kind of like went back with my tail between my legs, and I took this job as director of post-production for an advertising agency. And, fast forward a little bit, the pandemic strikes, COVID-19, I get laid off. And that's when I started Ryan and Scott Media. And, you're an inspiration to me, Ryan, because, I just recently found Studio Sherpas, and like, I wish that I had that resource when I first started my business, because it would have saved me a ton of anguish. And so Reinvention Studio Lab is a shortcut for people that are, feeling like they want to leave the corporate world and start their own like photography or video business, but they don't feel like they can do it. They don't know where to start. They don't have the confidence or the mindset, but they know that they have some internal work to do to get that done. And so Reinvention Studio Lab it's going to help people. I feel like it would almost be like a primer to Studio Sherpas. Like I feel like it's almost like something that I would like graduate my folks in and send them your way. Cool. So it's like it's really about like getting people that confidence and that know-how, like how to be a self-leader, to train their mind and get prepared to start their own company. So
I love that.
I'm hoping.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Where can people find? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm hoping that I'll have that site ready by the time this airs, but that's, I guess, beside the point.
Okay, pressure's on. So when it is ready, where can people go to find out more information about that, and where can they find out more about the video stuff that you're up to?
Yeah, so you can see some of my current work at Ryan Scott Media on Facebook. A great place to interact with me directly would be on Twitter. I'm at TeachVidScott. That's TeachVidScott. And if you'd like to learn more about Reinvention Studio Lab, please just visit reinventionstudiolab.com. And I encourage you, if you have any questions, to just reach out to me directly. You can reach out to me directly at scott@reinventionstudiolab.com.
Awesome. That's great. Hope people do that. Scott, thank you so much for your wisdom. Really, really appreciate you being on the show today.
Ryan, thank you so much. It's a great honor. You are doing a tremendous service to the production world, and I thank you.
Thanks, brother. All right, friends. Hey, just a reminder, you can check the show notes for the links that we've talked about in this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Are you using Final Cut Pro? Who out there is using it? Are you convinced after my chat with Scott that you should be using Final Cut? If you're not, where are you at? Who are the haters? Who's going to stop listening to the show? I'm just kidding. But seriously, if you're going to stop listening to the show after this episode, see you later. I wish you the best. If you like this show, do me a favor, take a screenshot right now on your phone or on your computer or whatever and send it to someone that you think would benefit. I really, really do appreciate. Feel free to leave a testimonial or a review or whatever you call it on Apple Podcasts. I love reading those. Those are super encouraging and super fun, and it helps with the algorithm. It helps get this show some more exposure. I want to try to help as many people as I can. Also have a free community. If you go to studiosherpas.com/community, we have a free online community that you can connect with a bunch of other people. You can follow me on the socials at Ryan Coral or at Grow Your Video Business. If you have any questions, you want to reach out, feel free, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email. I am Ryan@studiosherpas.com. Here, busy prepping for the much anticipated Onward Summit. I know I've been talking about it a lot. Is one of my favorite things to do. Hopefully, after talking about it so much this year, I'll never have to mention it again. It will sell out every single time. That's my hope. That's my goal. I would love to see you. We're aiming for less than 40 people so that it can stay intimate, so you can make some incredible connections. We've got Patrick Moreau and Grant Peel from Muse Storytelling, Kathleen Shannon from Braid Creative. We've got more. We're adding more speakers. It is going to be an incredible event. Would love to see you there. OnwardSummit.com or StudioSherpas.com/onward. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. I'm done. I'm just going to let you go. I appreciate you. I love your guts, and so grateful that you've made it this far in this episode, that you haven't stopped listening. But wishing you the best. I am in your corner to support you however I can, so please don't hesitate to reach out and shoot me some kind of a message and just let me know where you're at in your business. How are things going? How can I help you? How can I serve you and support the work that you are trying to do? How can I help you build the video business of your dreams? Okay? That was a question mark. Question mark? Okay. Goodbye. I'll talk to you later. See ya soon.